Good morning, everyone. Welcome to session 1.6. I think we'll give folks another minute to just trickle into the Zoom room, and then we'll get started. Okay, everyone. In the interest of time, I think we'll get started. And if other folks trickle in, then we welcome them. So hopefully you're all in the right session. If you joined session 1.6, then you're in the right place. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Next. My name is Megan Glazer, and I am the Vice President at LeadingAge New Jersey and Delaware. I'm joined today by my colleague, Emma Bender, who is our fabulous membership associate. And the other folks up on the screen are the team of individuals I work with day in and day out. Some of you may be familiar with our president and CEO, Jim McCracken. He is a licensed nursing home administrator and also served as a former long-term care ombudsman for the state of New Jersey. So who is LeadingAge New Jersey and Delaware? We are a not-for-profit, mission-driven trade association, and we represent mainly not-for-profits, but also mission-driven folks who work in senior care organizations and aging services across the entire field. Our mission is really focused on advancing quality aging services in both New Jersey and in Delaware through advocacy, education, and fellowship. So I think what makes LeadingAge really unique is that we represent the aging services providers across the entire continuum of care. So from skilled nursing facilities to assisted living residences to continuing care retirement communities, also known as life plan communities. We also represent home care. So organizations like PACE, ALPs, hospice, and more than half of our membership here in New Jersey is actually independent senior affordable housing communities. Nationwide, we represent over 5,000 mission-driven organizations. So as you can see, the network is really broad and it's very diverse. There's 36 state partners that are part of the LeadingAge network. So here in New Jersey and Delaware, we are one of those state partners. This slide really just represents who our members are. Some of these organizations have been around for more than 100 years. I want to make sure that when I need long-term care one day or a loved one of mine does, that they're still in existence. So that's sort of why we're here to help support them. You can see we have close to 150 members on the screen and 7 founding members in Delaware. What do we do day in and day out, just so you can get a better idea of the types of innovative things that we're working on? So here at LeadingAge New Jersey and Delaware, we do a lot of advocacy. So we're working in the halls of the State House in Trenton and Legislative Hall in Dover. We also do a lot of advocacy at the federal level. So my colleagues in Washington, D.C., they really focus on federal legislation and Congress, while myself and others at our government relations team really focus on state level advocacy. We also host a bunch of different roundtables and committees. Some are focused on policy and advocacy, some on education, some are specific to the service lines or someone's role. So like a director of human resources or a director of nursing. And we really provide professional support, and it provides folks an opportunity to network with one another and share best practices in the field of aging services. Education is huge for us. We want to make sure that our members are staying on top of what the best practices are staying in compliance with any new laws or mandates. And so we host an annual conference in June in Atlantic City. People can come and earn their CEUs, but we also have a very robust educational calendar throughout the year. We send newsletters, we issue reports, we have a really robust website. So there's a lot going on in terms of keeping people informed and educated. Next. So now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Emma Bender, to talk about a really innovative project that we worked on with some mission-driven organizations called New Jersey United for Older Adults.
Thanks, Megan. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Just want to take a little bit of time to talk about this project. Thanks to the generous support of the Henry and Marilyn Taub Foundation, we received grant funding starting in September of 2023 to support 8 new mission-driven senior housing and healthcare communities by bringing activity programming into their buildings. And we chose to pursue this project because throughout the pandemic, we saw older adults isolated because of the virus and saw a real need for social interaction through community programming. So this project helped to bridge that gap, fill the gap, and improve quality of life for the residents in these 8 communities. In addition to that, we also saw widespread burnout among the aging services workforce in aging services communities and saw a strong need for professional support of these employees, which our association can provide, as Megan stated. So overall, this project helped to strengthen aging services infrastructure in New Jersey. Of the 8 new members that we brought in, 5 are senior affordable housing, 2 are skilled nursing and adult day, and 1 is an assisted living residence. And across these 8 communities, we were able to support over 1,200 residents and staff. For the project, each of our communities received grant funding, as I mentioned, as well as resident interest surveys, activity scheduling and assistance as needed, as well as activity evaluations. We also provided full membership benefits to each of these communities, as we would any other member, in order to support their community staff. The communities that we brought in are primarily in North Jersey. We have some in Jersey City, Clifton, Lincroft, Fort Lee, River Edge, and Trenton. So these are the resident interest surveys that I mentioned. So we provided these to each community, who then sent them out to their residents and had as many of them fill it out as possible. Residents were asked to select the types of activities they were interested in, whether it's art, music and theater, or physical wellness. They were also asked to indicate the days of the week and times that worked best for them, and any other comments that they had that they wanted their community staff to be aware of. The community returned these surveys to us. We compiled the results and sent them back so communities were able to see the top results for each of these questions and really move forward with activity programming based on the desires of their residents. Many of the communities already had activity providers that they worked with in the past, so continued to use them for these activities, but others didn't have these resources. So we were able to connect them with activity providers in their area out of a bank that we had created at the start of this project. From the interest surveys, we saw that almost half of the residents that responded didn't have any type of electronic device that could be used to enhance any activities brought into the community. In addition to that, we saw that the top 3 activities most residents selected were art classes, music and theater, and mental health and other wellness. So our providers were able to take this information and use it in scheduling their activities. These are our activity evaluations that we provided to each community, and we asked them to have as many residents as possible fill it out after participating in each of their activities. This helped us and the community gauge how the activities were received by residents, what they liked, what they enjoyed, what could be improved, as well as other activities they might like to see in the future based on what they had attended. Many of the activities were highly rated, and we received a lot of positive feedback on them. And for question 7 there on additional comments, we also found that a lot of residents requested additional physical wellness programming. So this is something that we saw was very important to residents and helpful for communities in scheduling additional programming. Musical performances and physical wellness like Zumba were well attended and highly rated by the residents that attended them. We also saw that there were many residents that indicated they had a physical health problem that may limit their ability to participate in the programming. So this was helpful for communities just as an indicator for which residents in their buildings may be really interested in participating, but may need a little bit more assistance in doing so. So that helped communities to come alongside those residents. One other request that stood out to us was a lot of residents also indicated that they wanted to learn more about technology and how they could use the devices that they had, whether it be a laptop, smartphone, or tablet, to be able to use those well. So overall, we really enjoyed putting together this project and coming alongside these communities and assisting them in providing programming to their residents. Megan and I were also able to attend a couple of these and really loved seeing how engaged the residents were. So again, we're just grateful for the support of the Taub Foundation and the ability they provided us to be able to support these communities. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Megan for more information on our policy and advocacy work.
Thanks, Emma. Yeah, so it was a really exciting project to be able to provide that type of support to the communities, their staff, and then the residents directly. In terms of policy and advocacy, we want to make sure that mission-driven providers who are providing care day in and day out on the front lines, who may not have the opportunity to come to Congress or the State House, we want to ensure that their voice is heard and that challenges that they're facing or policy problems or solutions that they identify are brought forth to government regulators, to legislators, and basically to all the stakeholders that are involved in decision-making that impact how they care for their residents every day. So we do that, like I said earlier, at the federal and state level, also county and local level. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go into depth on our federal policy platform, but we did include a link in this slide. And if Emma hasn't already, we will put the PowerPoint presentation into the chat as well. Next, please. So here's some of the state policy work that we have been engaged in and some of our major accomplishments. We've worked really closely with assisted living providers to raise their reimbursement rates. Assisted living providers help older adults age in place. They keep them out of higher cost of care settings like nursing homes, so they inevitably save taxpayers dollars. So we worked to reimburse Medicaid-centric assisted living providers at a higher rate as well. There's a lot of different legislation we track. As I said, we have a very diverse membership, so we look at over 200 bills on a pretty regular basis. We coordinate with our aging services providers to help them provide testimony before committees like Senate Health and Assembly Aging. And then we're also involved right now, we're in the midst of budget advocacy. So unfortunately, New Jersey doesn't have a rate setting system in place like other states for nursing homes. So we're sort of forced to constantly be going before our legislators and, for lack of a better term, begging for money because frankly, the reimbursement rates have just not kept up with the cost of quality care. Next. So once again, interest of time, I'm not going to go through every single one of these policy issues, but we're working with partners at the AARP, Justice and Aging to try to raise the Medicaid asset limit. We're working on a whole host of task forces and work groups on things like the Quality Incentive Program, on expanding digital equity and broadband access in senior affordable housing communities, because a lot of those buildings are not equipped with Wi-Fi throughout the community. We're bringing legislators out into the field to tour different member sites. So this summer, I went to a bunch of different CCRCs so legislators could get a better understanding how a bill they were going to pass would really impact those communities as well as the residents living there. So once again, there's a lot here in the slides, so I encourage you to review them after the presentation or to ask questions. But we really do a lot of work day in and day out to make sure that our members are supported as well as the residents they serve. So these are just some ways we kind of wanted to end the presentation and wrap things up with some additional resources and ways that you all could get involved. I mentioned the roundtables and committees earlier. I talked about events that we host throughout the year. I focused on our conference, but we also hold other events like an awards program and a golf outing. And various monthly and quarterly meetings. Once again, we want to provide a way for people who are working in this field to share best practices with one another. As Emma mentioned earlier, there's been a lot of burnout. The aging services workforce is aging as our population is aging. So there's been lots of folks who have retired and there's different transitions in leadership. So we want to make sure all of those folks are supported so that the residents get the best care that they deserve. I think on that note, I will end with the shameless plug to follow us on our various social media accounts, reach out to Emma and I, give us a call, shoot us an email. We really welcome your participation. And I think we have 10 minutes now, which is perfect timing for some questions and answers. I'll take a look at the chat, so feel free to put any questions you might have in the chat or just unmute yourself. We want to foster a robust conversation here, so I will open it up. Give folks a minute to just type into the chat.
Megan, this is Kathy Hart. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Kathy. I can hear
Hi,
you.
how are you? Just
Good, how are
wondering how someone could volunteer to be on one of the committees or get involved in one of the committees.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the committees are a specific member benefit. So you have to be a member at one of the organizations that's part of LeadingAge to join one of those committees. But we welcome non-members to come to our various events that are held throughout the year. So I'm happy to talk more offline about ways that you could get further involved with volunteering for a committee.
Thank you.
Sure thing. Anyone else?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Barbara?
Yeah, I'm Barbara Sullivan. I am the director of Village to Village Network, the national organization. We have several villages here in New Jersey, specifically 2 up in North Jersey and 1 here down in Margate at the shore. Any work done and I should also say I'm on the national board of LeadingAge. Right. So I'm based here in South Jersey and an advocate for home and community-based services. Part of our advocacy is to look at, how some of the OAA money can be redirected to home and community-based, support services. And I don't know if you know about the village movement, but we have about over 300 villages throughout the United States. And so part of what I'm doing at the National LeadingAge is continuing the conversation on how we can do more support services with folks that are living at home and want to stay at home and age in place. So I'm wondering if there's any initiatives to do that. I'm very interested in the conference in Atlantic City. Roberto Munez also mentioned it to me. I don't know if you know him.
Yes. Yeah. Roberto is the chair of National LeadingAge and was formerly on our board. And yeah, Roberto and Parker are doing amazing things. You're doing amazing things. So thank you for unmuting and for that very important question. Yeah, there's a huge movement, especially right now with this administration. There is a really big focus on home and community-based services, Barbara. So I definitely think like the political climate is right for that type of advocacy. So we're, like I said, we're involved in budget advocacy right now. What that kind of looks like a little more nitty-gritty is, you know, meeting with close to 50 members of the legislature that focus on not only budget and appropriations, but also there's a new Assembly Aging and Senior Services Committee, as well as the Senate Health Committee. And so that new Aging Services Committee is really unique because it obviously is focusing on aging services given its title. And Chairwoman Spate has actually introduced a couple of bills focused on our field. So I think that that's a really good opportunity for us and for you to get involved in spotlighting home and community-based services.
Terrific. Well, and I'm also partial to South Jersey, so I want to see a little bit more. I was born and raised here, so very near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. And we have some good, you know, we have some good champions down there, and anybody, you know, whether you're in North, Central, or South Jersey, like I definitely encourage you to develop a relationship with your local legislators, because they will be asking questions of the Department of Treasury, of the Office of Legislative Services, of DOH, DHS. So if there is a question like, you know, how can we divert more resources towards home and community-based services? You can educate your local legislators and sort of prompt and request them to ask those questions of the departments. And when it's done in a public forum like that, you know, not only is it part of the public record, but reporters will report on it in the media and things of that nature. So I'm happy to connect with you more offline, because I think I don't know if everybody got the message, but I saw that Emily said we have to transition soon. So yeah, so I'm happy to connect with you offline about that. I don't know.
Perfect. Yeah, no problem.
If we have time for another question, does anybody else, was there anything in the chat, Emma?
Nope. It looks like Carol asked Barbara what your organization was again. That was the only question in the
I
chat.
think she said village to
it's
village.
Yeah, and I'm actually in a driving mode, so I can't put it in the chat. I'm about to switch over to my computer, so I'll put it in the chat. Just Google Village to Village Network.
Okay, thank you.
I'd be happy to do it. Yes, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Please do connect with us offline. I am so grateful to Emily and Natalie and her team. They did a similar conference to this about a year ago, and it created such ability for networking and connections that really continued well on beyond the conference. So I hope this event produces the same outcome. And please look to LeadingAge New Jersey and Delaware as a resource. We're happy to connect with you all. I thought we had to go to the other rooms, but I can't quite figure out how to do that. Maybe we're automatically gonna be put into them. But I see in the chat we have Heather joined us today, and Heather's from Trent. Trent Center West, and was actually one of the mission-driven organizations that Emma mentioned during her presentation that was part of the grant project and received some funding. So I just saw Heather's comment about it being an amazing experience. So thank you for joining us and for working with us. And I'm glad that you and your residents found it worthwhile. Emma, did you have anything else to add before, I guess, Rutgers puts us back into the main room?
No, I don't think so. I think you're right. They're going to automatically put us back into the main room.
Okay.
We have to
Sorry,
do it.
I got like a separate message from Emily and I thought
I saw that too. Yeah.
supposed to wrap up and get everybody back to where they had to go. But yeah, it looks like a great group of folks. I recognize some of your names and organizations. So once again, I mean, if we have a minute or two and people want to unmute and share an experience or an important update of something they're working on, we welcome that as well, because it's all about collaboration.